Over 100 Boko Haram commanders and fighters surrender to the Nigerian army in Borno State. However, how repentant are these bandits? And reactions are still trailing the interview done by former military head Ibrahim Babangida. Of course, we'll be having conversations on that. Stay with us because this is Plus Politics, and I am Mary Ann O'Connell. Another Chibok girl has been rescued from captivity. Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum has announced the rescued girl, Ruth Bogu, returned with a Boko Haram fighter husband and 2 kids she delivered while in captivity. According to a statement signed by Zulum's spokesperson, Ruth and her apparently repentant husband surrendered themselves to the Nigerian military on July 28 at a location in Bama. In April 2014, we remember that about 276 students of the government's girls' secondary school in Chibok, Borno State, were kidnapped by Boko Haram terrorists. And still, on this Boko Haram terrorist matter, the Nigerian army says top Boko Haram commanders and fighters, along with their families, have surrendered to its troops in Operation Hadinkai. Well, joining us to discuss this is Dennis Amakri. He's a former assistant director of the DSS, and we're also being joined live by telephone by Chinedu Ohonda. He's a retired colonel. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Great. Colonel, I'm going to start with you because you're a retired colonel in the army, and then we're talking obviously about how the army is processing these so-called repentant Boko Haram members. Now, I'd like to take your mind back to earlier this year where the same Nigerian army complained about Boko Haram members who were given some form of amnesty and pardon, who still went back as informants to Boko Haram. So the first question is, how are these men processed when they come and say they're repentant or they have deserted Boko Haram and they're asking for some form of mercy? What should be the process in which these people are? And I know that, you know, for different uniformed organizations, there are different processes, but for the army, is it a thorough job that is being done when these men show up and say that they're repentant? Colonel, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Yes. Go ahead.
Clear, so
Go ahead.
Well, am I to comment?
Yes, please.
Okay. Those commanders that they claimed have surrendered to the army, and the army happened to have taken them on this thing, and they even came with one of the Chibok girls, and they are asking for forgiveness. Well, the truth is that if they have surrendered, they ought to go for what they call questioning, what they call intelligence questioning, to know more about the details they are surrendering and what is in their plans to surrender. Why is it that they are surrendering? Let them know. But the truth is that if they have come to plead and they want to, Nigeria as a country to forgive them and so on, they ought to undergo some questioning. First of all, to know their strength, where they are, the number of girls that they captured, how many of them that are still alive, those that are there, where are they? Have they dismembered some? Have they moved from one location to the other? So all put together to get this. But in a question of just apologizing, asking for forgiveness, no, that shouldn't be the basic. Which the governor also, the governor took one of the girls that has 2 kids now for him and to the parents, and they joined the parents of the girl, and the girl has, joined their parents and so on. So most of the time, to ask questions, is it truly what is supposed to be? So our military should capitalize on what they will get out of those people that are surrendered. They should know exactly what to do and know their locations and so on, so that this question of surrendering and asking for forgiveness should come up and let them know exactly what to do.
Let me push you. The acting general officer commanding 7th Division and the commander of Sector 1, Brigadier General Abdul Wahab Adelokun, during his visit to the Boko Haram enclave, or rather where the Boko Haram members were received, I'd like to just quote exactly what the reports say. He said that the decision of these men to drop their arms and come out first is highly commendable. He also goes ahead to say that they should also try and talk to their brothers and colleagues in the forest to come out and embrace a new life of peace and rehabilitation. He also spoke through an interpreter, which we know because these people do not necessarily speak English. But then we also record that these men got some form of donations from the army. They distributed new clothes, assorted food, groceries, and toiletries to the terrorists and their families. I'm really thinking about it. If it were anywhere else in the world, and a group of terrorists who have killed many people for over a decade, slightly over a decade, show up, do you think the U.S. Army, or let's not even go too far, just around the corner, would be giving them food items and giving them clothes instead of questioning these people, where they have been, what they've been up to, and why they're here? But what we see is more of a welcome party. So I'm still probing. Why is the army not doing the necessary? And why are we having such a media parley of sorts where they're giving terrorists and their families food and clothes? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they can't do it, but should that be the first thing that is being done? Let's keep the governor out of this. The governor is not a military person. He does not understand the processes of debriefing or trying to interrogate, a terrorist. But should this be what is making our headlines today in a country where we're facing this kind of terrorism?
Well, you can't say the army is not doing the necessary things because the army, there is a department that ought to call the man, not really arresting him, but putting him in a better situation and getting more information from him. And I believe the army will be doing that. They will not just release him or let him walk away like that. They will have to rehabilitate him, keep him together, and ask some pertinent questions that they will use in further working. So I believe the army will do that, not that they will just leave him like that. And that is it.
Let me come to you, Mr. Macri. You obviously work with the DSS or worked with the DSS, and you are a security expert. Questions have come up as to why we have so many of these men coming back. And you know the saying, once bitten, twice shy. We should be very security conscious as to the fact that these people, we have had people like this show up and say that they're repentant and still take info and intel to the guys wherever they are in the forest. Why should we trust this, sis? And the same question I asked Colonel, why are we somewhat welcoming them with clothes and food? These men are terrorists, repentant or not.
We are not supposed to welcome them. We are not supposed to welcome them because this has happened before. Before Governor Zulum came into power, there was another governor, I can't remember his name offhand, but there was this kidnapped girl who came in with her husband, a terrorist who married her, apparently raped her and then converted her into his wife. At that time, nothing was really done, but they welcomed the girl, and after some days, I think the man ran back into Boko Haram enclave. So now that we're having this same thing repeat itself, I think there should be some kind of procedure whereby you process these people very well. They cannot kill people and do all kinds of things, and then when they come, we open. I know that we are battle weary. We've been fighting this for more than a decade. And they are also very, very tired and despondent. That's why they are coming out to come and surrender. But we have to be very, very careful. Where are the arms that they surrendered with? I didn't see any arm. Instead, they came in there with placards, and the placards, some of them are illiterates, and this is well-written English saying, Nigerians, please forgive us. Who wrote it? Do they interpret it for people to write, or how did this come about? See, we don't want to give any benefit of doubt to what is happening here. It is a good omen that terrorists are surrendering, but let them surrender properly if actually they are surrendering. But we don't want to have them come in here under the cover of some kind of guise, and then tomorrow, the next thing you'll see them attacking, because then you take them into your house and then you never know what they can do to you.
I'm also curious as to the mindset or the psychological state in which the girl that has returned and her children are in. Because they've been away for years. I mean, and she's now a woman. She's not a girl anymore. And we have also seen in over the years that there have been girl bombers. We have seen girls come and bomb in different parts of the Northeast. So again, and I'm not in any way trying to propound any theory, but what processes should this girl go through too? I mean, she needs to go through a psych evaluation, but how are we certain that this girl has also not been brainwashed? And let's also talk about what should be done to these men, especially those who have the one who showed up as her husband, who probably slept with this child when she was underage. Shouldn't he be undergoing some form of jail time for child molestation? And he's also, on the one hand, a terrorist.
Well, the thing is this, for the girl, when she comes there, I think they will take her out for some kind of psychological evaluation, rehabilitation, and then, of course, talk to her a lot. The security agencies, especially the DSS, will have a lot to gather from this girl because she's been with them for years. She knows exactly what is going on there. But for the guy, that man is a fighter. He's been there. I think, number one, they should isolate him, and then, of course, debrief him properly. Just like what the colonel said, debrief him, and then, of course, ask him pertinent questions. And because he is a big source of information to the security agents, now that he has come out. And for the rest of them, I think they should all be quarantined somewhere and then interrogated one by one. You don't bring them and start giving them food and clothes and everything and then make them feel like as if, let's go back, later we'll come back again, I don't like that approach of what's going on right now.
One more question before I go back to the corner. I also noticed that in all of this conversation, the man was just referred to a man as a man. We do not know who he is. We don't see his face. We can't tell who exactly he is, but we see a picture of the other men who have surrendered somewhat and their families. We've heard that they have families. Of course, the families might be, behind the cameras. But who are these men? Can we name them? Can we trace? Again, I think I'm going to have this discussion is going to have to go back to the colonel, but I'll ask you. All of these other men that we rehabilitated and gave them some form of amnesty, why have they not been able to trace or tell us where they came from? Why have they not been able to take the army to where they are, where the main people are? Look at this group of people trained with taxpayers' monies, rehabilitated some of them, and even half of them went back. So why have these people not necessarily been able to take us to where these Boko Haram members are, at least their enclave? Well, congratulations to the army. We hear that, the Boko Haram leader was finally killed. But we need to be able to find these other people. Why is it taking so long? I may not be in the army, but we're curious. These are questions that people are asking.
It is. I think that is part of the process that I think the army is going to go through. I believe strongly that the commanders are going to go through that, but isolate them, get all the information you can get from them, get all their names, and which part of Nigeria they came from, because some of them might even be foreigners. And if they are foreigners, arrange for, deportation to their various governments. So there's a lot of processes to be carried out under this particular situation. And I hope that the military is doing that.
Back to you, Colonel. Let's talk about the fact that just as Mr. Makri has raised, we have the guns that have been running through the Sahel, and we know that even the bandits, most of them are not Nigerians. Of course, when we profile these people, we'll definitely know those who are insiders and those who are outsiders. Again, it could be that the Boko Haram fighters have had their resources depleted and loopholes have been plugged so they cannot have access to food, they cannot have access to the things that they used to have. And this could also be a strategy to get food. Look at the first thing we gave them, food. How are we dealing with this issue of, the arms struggle around the Sahel? Don't forget, the U.S. Senate recently put a pause to the sale of arms and the helicopters to Nigeria. If, for example, the army wants to move in on Boko Haram, how do they go about it? Let's also not forget that their arms and ammunitions are more sophisticated than what we have.
Well, if it's clear that they have cut off their line of communication, which means they won't be getting logistics and other things that they will use in prosecuting the war. The best the army can do is to know their present location, know their strength, know exactly what they are made up of, especially those of them. But the mistake the army kept making, or my colleagues have been making, is this question of kicking them and giving them shy and so on, what we call shy, and later they go back to their domain to attack, knowing fully well the army has good. So what we expect is that they should be isolated and certain pertinent questions will be asked, and that question should be used to locate where they are. And this is the army has all the equipment to use. Unless they want to
do they really have the equipment? Because we're still expecting more equipment or ammunition from the U.S. There has been a sale.
Yes,
but when you say we have all the equipment, do we really have it?
You see, they can have the general survey of where they are and know exactly what to do. They use the Air Force and the infantry men to at the place and know exactly what they are doing. So whether we like it or not, the army knows what to do, except they are using kid groups to just perpetrate this war going on. If not, they know exactly what to do. With this present left, it is very obvious and sure that they have cut off their lines of communication and they require enough listening.
So I want to quote again what the army chief said. He said the Nigerian army has resolved to intensify its both a kinetic and non-kinetic approach towards the ongoing fight against insurgency in order to leverage on the knowledge of Musa Adamu and Usman Adamu, also with the current wave of turnout by terrorists to enable her, that's the army, achieve both short and long-term counterinsurgency gains in the northeast. So explain to the layman what these kinetic and non-kinetic means.
Well, you see, whatever the chief said, what I know, there is an ongoing war, ongoing incursion against the bandits, against both in Zamfara and the northeast. So they must continue the momentum, and the momentum must continue, that must be high by the day. So let them see what the information they can gather, because those are the primary and the positive way of doing things. You see, you can't just execute them because you have seen them, they have surrendered to the people and so on. But they should be careful in holding them, knowing exactly what they want and how to go about their decision.
Interesting. I mean, I want to go back to the issue of, you know, the kidnap of these girls and the kidnaps that are continuously happening. Let's not forget that Kaduna seems to have become a target of sorts. And then, of course, it's still happening. Schools have been getting these bandits coming in and out. And let's not forget that the bandits also are totally different sets of people, a different sets of terrorists from Boko Haram. Now, I saw a video, I can't remember who sent me that video, of the state of these schools where these students have been kidnapped or are being kidnapped. And I really can't remember who sent me that video. And the person said something like, these are students waiting to be kidnapped, obviously, because the schools didn't look like it had a wall. You know, the children were obviously naked and open to, you know, whatever threats that could come, especially at a time like this where schools' education is being a target. So, Mr. Makri, what can government do? Because especially the government of President Buhari, they came on the wings of putting an end to this scourge, this insurgents, Boko Haram. But now we have a Hydra-headed monster, and they come under all kinds of names, unknown gunmen, bandits. There's Boko Haram on one side. I mean, it's a lot. So what is government going to do? I mean, the army already has its plates full. What is government doing deliberately? We've not heard anything since after the Senate put you know, its foot down to say they're not selling more equipment to us because they want to be certain that our army is not in any way using those arms and ammunition against its own people. And they cited cases of human rights abuses. What is our government doing to push to show that this war that they're fighting, they want to win it?
Well, when you look at the schools and how dilapidated they are, you know, it shows that somebody has neglected those schools. Now, when you also think about what the United Nations have come up with, which is the Safe School Initiative, that is something that I think we should have grabbed with both hands. It was started with about $10 million, and then after that, the contributors, the government itself was supposed to contribute, and some other organizations. But you find out that the schools have been there, laid bare, no perimeter fencing, no gates, no lights. In fact, the video you're talking about, where there are no doors in some of the dormitories, you know, is a situation that is really horrifying. So what governments can do, and I think the Kaduna state government have started it, They have chosen some schools. Right now, all schools are closed, about 5,000 of them in Kaduna State. And then right now, they've chosen some schools where they are strengthening, in fact, what do I call it? Hardening the security system of those schools. Now, when they finish, I don't know whether they're going to decide on whether they want to do mega schools where most of the students are going to be moved into those secure schools, because we cannot return students back to those schools that are dilapidated. And if you move them down there, then you have to give all necessary procedures and protocol available to those schools. That is, the schools have to be perimeter fenced. There must be an alarm system. The students and the community have to be trained on how to counter this when it comes. There should be an alarm system to alert everybody. And then, of course, there will be a quick response team not too far away that can come down there at any moment if any school is under attack.
These quick response teams, I'm sure that we have, please don't get me wrong, in Nigeria, every part of Nigeria, there's so many checkpoints with soldiers, at these checkpoints. So I keep asking every time they say they kidnapped students, they took this number of students. Where do they pass? That these security operatives that are different checkpoints that are not more than 5 to 6 kilometers away from each other. Where are these people? It really beats my imagination. And this quick response
is... No, it shouldn't beat your imagination. It shouldn't beat your imagination.
Really?
Because even as a city dweller, if you know that in a particular street or in a particular place, if you are driving in a city like Lagos, you know where the checkpoints are. You know where the checkpoints are. And then, of course, if you feel that maybe your car has some problems and, they will question you, you avoid it. And that is what is happening. So all those checkpoints that are within eyesight, on the highways, they are not there to even look at the kidnapped people. And besides, most of the kidnapped people, from what they've said, they take them right into the deep bush. It is bush. They are not following the road. They follow the bush and go. So with all the knowledge we have now, response is very, very important. Yeah. Response in the sense that if somebody, like I always say it, if people are kidnapped, we should not allow the kidnappers to rest until we get the students back. Because they are comfortably taking them, strolling down, children. They will walk with them gradually until they reach where they are going, keep them, and then start to ask for ransom. But if they know that there is hot pursuit, they are following them right behind them. I think they too sometimes will say, this business is getting out of hand. Let's forget it.
Okay. Colonel Honda, just before we go, Mr. Maki spoke about, the issue of arms and ammunition. And I want to ask, let's talk about the welfare. He also talked about the fact that it's a war that's been happening over a decade now. Is there something being done about, the welfare of these officers and men who are in the forefront of fighting this insurgency? Are they being taken care of? Is everything they need at their disposal? Because if you can't take a hungry person to fight a war, obviously, he's going to be thinking about his belly. Have the issues of welfare been taken care of in the army? I know you're no longer serving, but of course you do have intel.
I didn't get your question because it's raining here heavily in Port Harcourt. So
all right, I'll ask again. What are we doing in terms of welfare and, the mental health of these men who are fighting in the insurgency and, the fact that we know that the men and officers of the army had complained at some point that they needed certain things to be done for them to be able to win this war. Is that being done right now?
You see, you're talking of welfare of the members of the armed forces that are in the Northeast. Well, the welfare is not good enough because some of their commanders are shortchanging them in the war front. So the issue of, if you check what the man in the Air Force is earning is different from what the man in the Army, in the same war front, is earning. So there must be that synergy between the three arms, that is the Army, Air Force, and Navy. But when you look at it, they differ in most ways. The Navy is earning a different thing, the Army is earning a different thing, the Air Force is earning a different thing. Then you talk of their uniform. They are not well kitted.
You have less than 1 minute for this.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think that we have lost Colonel Honda. But I want to say thank you. Colonel Chinedu Honda is a retired colonel in the Nigerian Army. Mr. Makri is a former DSS Deputy Director. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. We appreciate it. All right. Well, we'll take a short break, and when we return, a fallout from the conversation yesterday with a spokesperson of the former Army General and former President Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida has raised questions about the death of famous Nigerian journalist Dele Giwa. We'll be digging deep into it. Stay with us.
Welcome to The Breakfast.
A breakfast where we unbundle top and big stories of the day.
Is vaccine the only way out of this pandemic?
No, definitely not.
Many Ghanaians just want a peaceful election and they are hoping there will be no rigging.
There is nothing bad in borrowing for infrastructure. The minister added that he was impressed.
Please come and see yourself what we are doing with the money we have borrowed.
It's very important. The way we brand ourselves is the way people will carry us.
It's just the driver of the two vehicles that were completely burned. This one was here screaming.
What do you recommend the government do to support this sector?
Direct intervention, that's what every government all over the world has done.
We are not a parallel security structure. A multiple core is a complementary core.
What I will not encourage Christians to do is to carry dagger and follow anybody. No.
Join us on The Breakfast, 7 a.m., Monday to Friday.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
You no talk, they go beat you.
Now 2,500 I dey pay.
Decision point. The way your baby is presenting, we have to rush you in. And my partner at the time was like, "You going to cut her? Are you going to cut her? Is it going to leave a scar?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a belly dancer. What is the problem here?"
No, I'm vulnerable about the future of the children, the future of mine and the future of the generation of my children.
I want to have nude pictures taken. Of you? Yes, but without showing my private parts. I want to put it in my front room. And they said, "You can't do that. People will be embarrassed when they came into your house." I said, "Well, it's my body and it's my front room."
All the things that we do, what is the purpose of it?
I just realized that I was more trusting before I was 6. So many women, they just feel like I have to cook for my husband, I have to breastfeed my children, I have to pick them from school.
Because society expects
them. Then you
them
go home and you cry and you stop your career, you can't do anything, then you blame everybody. You took that choice.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating
and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
On the 19th of October 2021, it would mark the 35th year after the assassination of the journalist, one of the founding editors of Newswatch magazine, Dele Giwa. Now, he's believed to be one of Nigeria's strongest journalists. He died in 1986 at the age of 39 after opening a parcel bomb at his residence here in Lagos State. Ikeja, precisely. Now, in 1984, he and other journalists founded the Newswatch magazine, which was said to have redefined investigative journalism in Nigeria. In 1985, the paper attracted the attention of the military administration of General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, which the administration praised in the beginning. However, by 1986, he had become a terror and displeased by the IBB administration because of his criticisms. His assassination has become one of the highest profiled cold cases in the country. Well, joining us to discuss some of the details of the assassination and the investigation that followed is Adeyemi Saka. He's a media practitioner. It's good to have you join us.
Nice to be here.
So it's interesting. A lot of people have propounded all kinds of theories. We've read all different accounts as to what people think happened. And many pointed at the IBB administration for to take responsibility for the death of, this journalist. But then, of course, they absolved themselves from it. The question many are asking is why did they not fish out the killers? For a strong government as that of IBB, and for a man who was his friend.
Well, I think we should. It's very easy, very simple to answer that because maybe Nigerians was fixated on the suspects, and I think some investigations or subsequent investigations was just directed at arriving at the perception among Nigerians. And for me, I think there's a need for us to go back to the case, pick holes in different accounts of saying, to let Nigerians know that probably we've been unfair or we've been needlessly critical of innocent people.
And when we say innocent people, who are we referring to in this case?
Yeah, because the perception among Nigerians then was so strong. Three names were prominently mentioned. Togun of the DSS, Akilo of the DMI, and General Baribas Babangida as the head of state. But the case was taken to court, and Justice Longe struck it out because you can't convince people based on hearsay. There was nothing circumstantial enough to pronounce guilty verdicts on these people.
Yes, and even if, because again, in a court of law, you have to give evidence that is visible and feasible enough to, convince the court. But if, for example, I am your friend and I am the president and you get killed by a lesser bomb, would I not do everything in my power because I have the DSS or the SSS at the time? I have the police. I have whatever. It was a dictatorship of sorts. It was a military administration. It wasn't a democracy. It wasn't a civilian government. They had everything in their power to make sure that they fished out. There might be so many people that they would pick up as suspects, but they would have gotten to the bottom of the matter. What was the challenge? Explain to me.
Well, it's safe to say, yes, the military government or regime, if you want to put administration, but that didn't suspend the operations or the existence of the Nigerian police, or judiciary, or what have you. They were run as an independent institution of government. And it would be wrong for any other state to take over the responsibility of these agencies or institutions. The Nigerian police has been in existence before the administration in 1985 to 93. So it's up for the police and the DSS to do what they would do. What the president would have done, which I knew he did, was to give them a clear mandate to get to the bottom of the case. That the police did not get to the bottom of the case is what we should be asking the police, not IBB.
He's the head of state. The buck stops at his table.
Yes, but it gave them the freedom to work.
A prominent journalist who was highly critical of his government, who used to be his friend at a point, I'm going to keep saying that, but then very critical of his government, then became a target, then got killed. At least, we cannot just say the police was not doing its job. Yes, but the police's power stops at a certain place. I know the court also has its job cut out of it. I know for it, we had journalists, I remember the likes of Femi Falana being in the forefront of this issue, Gani Fawemi, and all the likes of these people pushing and shoving, and we're in 2021, still, there have been cold cases that have taken years to be unraveled. It could have been followed through. But you're asking a very intelligent question. Where was the police in all of this?
No, but okay, let me give you something. It's very critical for us to look at an account given by an eyewitness of the day of the blast. It was said that a package was brought in, and Lady Legiwa of blessed memory opened the package, and there was, boom, an explosion. And from his account, it said the package was in an A4 envelope, and the Legiwa held the parcel up high and opened it from the left side. But I think Nigerians should just cast their mind back, or probably if they could go on the internet to dig up the photos available about the Legiwa after that incident. With that description, and with what I know about letter bomb, parcel bomb, or mail bomb, what you call it, there was no way the Legiwa would have opened such a parcel with such magnitude of explosion that mangled the burglary proof and did all that, and his fingers were intact. His face wasn't burnt. There was a degree of burns on his chest. His abdomen was intact. The only thing.
So you're making a case that it wasn't a lesser bomb. You're
trying to say it's not a lesser bomb.
Or you're trying to decipher if it was C4 or if it was just.
No, it wasn't there for the debate.
I'm just saying.
I'm still driving someplace.
Okay.
Now, so my own knowledge of when it comes to explosion, IEDs and what have you, what killed the Legiwa was probably not in his hands. What killed the Legiwa was under his seat. And I'll tell you why. There was no way the Legiwa would have opened a parcel bomb of such magnitude, and his fingers were intact. His face was intact. His chest had a slight degree of burns. His abdomen was intact. The magnitude of the impact would have ruptured his abdomen, would have burnt his face, and blew off his fingers. And in explosion, and when it comes to what have you, detonation and what have you, once there's a package or something on a device, if I can use the word muffle, it reduces the impact of the explosion. So that's why what was blown off the Legiwa.
What makes you think it was on his seat?
Because if it was in his hands, his abdomen would have been blown open. His face wouldn't have been spared. The only thing on the Legiwa's face was burns on the right side of his cheek.
Well, it depends on how it exploded.
It depends
you and I were not there when it
exploded.
exploded.
We were not there. Now listen to this account. They said the explosion came up. A trim of the witness said a trim of the chair. The witness said the explosion threw the Legiwa off his chair. And after the explosion, and we saw what we saw. Now, the question is, which is critical for Nigerians to ask, and with the people tell Nigerians, people want Nigerians to look at. There is no way Let's look at the photos again.
I'm sorry. Are we still arguing about what killed him?
No, I'm not. We're not arguing. No,
trying to investigate why he got killed.
No,
because I think that we're doing.
No, there are two different things here. But at least we know Delegua was killed.
Absolutely.
And we're trying to because I'm trying to let us say that it's probably not even a parcel bomb. This has been an age-long perception among Nigerians. I wish, and in a bid to get the Delegua's family closure, which is needed, which is necessary, we shouldn't be inflicting wounds on other people that they too be seeking closure for the next 20, 30 years.
And who are these people? I keep asking, what are these people that you're trying to make a case for?
No, it's not trying to make a case for people.
Because you seem to be a mouthpiece of certain gods in this matter.
No, they're not
Who
gods.
Are you fronting for?
They are human beings. I'm a Nigerian.
Are you here to speak on behalf of the former general? Are you trying to make a case for him that he's an innocent man?
It's not about trying to make a case for general.
Because the courts never said he was guilty of
It's not even about making a case. It's not even about making a case for the general. It's about letting Nigerians know that we need to widen our horizon. We need to question some things. And another thing that sounds so interesting to me, and when I read the account of the high witness, and it's so curious that the high witness came out with just a perforated eardrum. With an impact, with what it described, there should have at least been a scratch on his body. So
there were.
No, his account says miraculously, it just came out with perforated eardrum. And there's no, when you look at, when we read up about bombs being close to ground zero, that is probably one incident that miracle hardly happens.
Well, if it was locally made, of course, the impact would not be as good as C4.
Yeah, the impact might not be as good as C4, but based on what you and I saw, if you dig up the images, something that was able to blow up a mahogany table, something that was able to mangle burglary proof and to burn the curtains that were like 10 meters away, wouldn't spare anything in the sight.
I don't want to act like we're in a court or I'm an investigator of sorts. I could be. If you realize, because the impact comes immediately, if you realize and you throw it or you take it away from you, of course, it might do damage to something else and not necessarily do to you as much as it would have done. Again, let's not forget it was a parcel, so she could have thrown it.
Alice, I insist my argument, my comparative analysis is based on the account of the eyewitness on ground that insisted.
Let's not forget that when trauma happens, certain events can be replayed in your brain and you might not be giving it an exact account of what happened. So really, can we just go by that? But I don't want us again, because we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
I don't want us to dwell on what happened. We'll leave that for the forensics to deal with.
Yeah.
Our duty here today is to understand why a man so outspoken was killed, why the death of that man has only just been whispers in certain chambers, and we've not necessarily followed through. I mean, let's not even go to a man like JFK. He was a president, he was a sitting president, so of course his case would have been taken.
I won't justify.
No. I'm just even saying. But then there have been several cold cases in different parts of the world that have taken years to unravel. It looks like in this part of the world, when things like this happen, we feel bad, we grumble, we mumble, we come up with conspiracy theories, and then we let it go. This is what's happened to Delegua's case. And why we're still having this conversation is because I don't think it's a closed case. If it was closed, we need to reopen it and continue to find out and ask the right questions.
Yeah, and our probably
instead of sitting here and trying to justify
we're even going to ask more
questions. We have all felt that I was wrong.
Because I'm going to still
as a country.
No, we still need to ask a lot of questions, because I knew while growing up, when the news of Delegua, when it broke that he died, I remember my mom coming into the living room weeping profusely as if Delegua was a relative. That was how bad, that was how passionate Nigerians felt about it. But
where is that passion today? And
I'm coming. We grew up with the perception.
I feel like we make more excuses for our leaders instead of talking about how we can get our leaders to be accountable to us.
No, but if we want to get our leaders accountable, we should be doing that with incontrovertible facts that are rock solid, that pass the test of time. And for me, we should look at something. There were a lot of arguments that came up. There were a lot of stories we heard. There was a story about Akilu then calling the house of Delegua, asking for directions to his house. And I tell people, my knowledge of when it comes to spy work and what have you, if Delegiwa was under surveillance, there was no need for anybody to call his residence. And this was a Delegiwa, Vehepo, and the police officer that it was alleged that they promised to give a job if he was dismissed from the police, claimed at some point that their lines were bugged. And there was no way you could bug somebody's residence from a distance. Then you have to be on the spot to do that. So if this government then had the resources to do that, there was no need for Akilu to have called his residents to know where Delegiwa was, because if Delegiwa was being tailed or under surveillance, all they need to do, they know when he's at home, because Delegiwa was not a trained spy to know if he's under surveillance or not. So we need to help. We need to help the families, the family as well. We need to even help the institution by looking beyond that. I had growing up, I had the story of Gloria Okon. And it's amazing that the best trained spy in the world, or one of the best trained spies in the world, with the case at KGB, CIA, M16, Secret Service, they get tired of living under an alias. They always come out of hiding. 35 years after, we've not seen anything that looks like Gloria Okun.
And I think that this you're making it up in your head. A trained spy never gets tired.
They get tired. I insist, they get tired of living under an alias.
Have you been a spy before?
Well, I've obviously not one.
Have you been a spy before?
But I have an account.
So how do you know?
I will tell you one. I'll give you one.
Stories are made so that you do not be.
No,
do you
don't get me wrong. I can tell you. I can get
tired?
you to get a copy of The Veil written by Bob Woodward.
How can you tell who a spy is?
I can't tell who a spy is. Well, it's in the tradecraft.
Because you do not know about it.
Well, some of us read up, some of us are natural, some of us know about these things.
I can write anything to.
Well, but I just mentioned the name to you. I told you where I got it from. Read the book The Veil by Bob Woodward. CIA account from 1971 to 1985.
Gloria Okon can be living under an alias somewhere. She's having a good time.
What about relatives? There's nobody would have come forward, nobody would have bumped into anybody. And curious, the same Gloria Okon was the reason many alluded, or probably alleged was the reason Muhammadu Buhari was ousted in 1985. It's conflicting.
Well, this particular issue is going to be something that we will keep revisiting.
I'm always a phone caller if you want us to discuss it.
Oh, no, not too much time. But we will continue to, because the truth is, there's more to this story than what we are seeing, and we need to dig up more information. But then we're not going to make it about politicians.
No, it's not about politicians. I was going to say something. On the pattern shot, I guess, because I know we're running out of time.
Yes.
Parcel bomb, letter bomb, the closest it got to Nigeria was South Africa in 1984. I'm coming.
Here we go.
It was a technology beyond. It was a mode beyond us.
Because it was beyond us, we
I'm
could
coming.
not get
I'm
it.
still
We
coming
had
somewhere.
a military head.
No, I'm still coming somewhere. And I guess the issue of Gloria Okon, the issue of WhatsApp, it was a deliberate misinformation by the perpetrators to knock us off their trail. Trust me.
And the government, the army, the police bought it hook, line, and sinker.
They are human beings. They are not spirits.
Really. But we will revisit this. I want to say thank you very much, Deyemi, for being part of the conversation. Well, thank you all for staying with us. We'll take quickly a report because we know that recently there was a report that the Senate committee recommended the creation of 20 new states. Although it was later denied, Nigerians had something to say about this. We'll take a short break and look at it. And then, of course, we'll wrap up the show right after. Indeed.
Presently, Nigeria doesn't need more states. Because all those states we are having now, there's no resources even to manage them. There's no even a capital to make sure that every state is sustained with resources they have. Creating more states is like creating more problem and creating more liability for the whole Nigeria. Because we are able to create any business in any environment, you must make sure that the one that you have is already sustained. The one you have already have is already grounded and able to support and finance very well. But how many states are able to boast that they are paying their salary 100%?
The state we have is okay because we are talking of economy. You are creating a state. What are you going to? Even the one we have not. The government has not funded very well. They don't take care. So it's just that you are giving to more poverty. The one we have. If you go to other states abroad, Americans and the likes, they manage what they have. So what we have for now, they have not managed it.
The one we have right now, we have not been able to satisfy the citizen or the state itself. When you talk of federalism, we're not getting the federalism in the state we have. So when you add more, it's a more burden for the country itself. So if we be able to manage the one we have right now, then we can add more states. But for now, I don't think we are ripe for that.
Sorry, I don't think Nigeria need more states because more states is not the problem of the country. You understand? So making more straight will not solve the problem of this country. You understand?
What I saw in the social media yesterday or day before yesterday, if they wonder we are into now, we can't manage it well, and they say that additional more state. For my own side, to say, I see the one that we are already having, we are managing well. That is why we should have agitating for more state. But now the one we have, how the economy is and every what we are facing, like me, I don't think we should try to come back first well before talking of adding another state and order, for my own view.
Actually, we need more states because the way the situation of the country is going now, presently, there are some things we need to put hands together and create more states so that a lot of people, because especially like Lagos as a whole, the place is shocking up. So if there's any way, like within all this Ekpe or some other states, they can able to tear it and create more states, at least the place will still expand.
We'll see you tomorrow on Plus Politics. I am Mary Anna Cohn. Have a good evening.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there's regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamode Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamode Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.